So with that, everything today, we'll have Janelle Weiss, our resource management specialist in Shelby County, presenting today on a number of different topics. If you have any questions, please raise your hand on the webinar or type them into the questions or chat box. We'll try and answer them on the fly if we can, especially if it's going to be something critical to the next couple steps. If you have any comments, thoughts, or any other feedback, feel free to email me after the session. We'll go through things fairly quickly today because you will be able to review the webinar at any time if there's points you missed or maybe parts we weren't clear on the recording, which will be posted to our YouTube site. Hopefully sometime a little bit later this afternoon or on, well, Monday at the latest. That'll go up, and that link was on the original webinar announcements. With that, are we ready to get started, Janelle?
We are.
Okay, I will change over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Justin. Today, what you are in store for is to bridge the gap from Justin's webinar of just really getting to know the very basics of ArcGIS to get you those last few skills to do an editing session, to edit spatial data like split polygons, and during that editing session also manipulate tabular data by manipulating an attribute table, adding fields, using field calculator, and calculating geometry. So to do those things, we're going to make a couple assessment maps today. For those of you in rural districts especially, I'm sure you've had the experience of landowners coming in and wanting a watershed map with parcel acreages and landowner names. And so we're going to build one of those maps in the first part of today's webinar. And then, as time allows, we're going to get a little bit fancy. In the second part, we're going to do an assessment map that's not just acreage based, but also looking at weighting factors for soil type, for land use, and proximity to your ditch or tile line. So I'm going to walk you through that, and hopefully we will all learn some things. So hopefully you guys are all seeing my screen. If you're having any issues, please let us know. I don't want to lose you on the dust. All right. The first thing we're going to do, there's a couple defaults in ArcMap that drive me a little nuts, so we're going to address a couple of those. The first one is in ArcMap, the default when you roll the wheel in is actually the exact opposite of what happens in AutoCAD. So we're going to fix that. We're going to go to Customize, ArcMap Options, and on the General tab, I'm going to change it here where in the bottom box where mouse wheel and continuous zoom pan tool. When I roll forward, I want it to zoom in. And another thing I want to take care of, down here in the bottom right corner, the default, at least on my system, is to show where I am in feet relative a datum that corresponds to my coordinate system. I'd much rather see minutes, degrees, seconds, so I'm going to go, I think, to data view. Yes, here at the box, the coordinate display and status bar, I want it to use these units instead of the data frames display. So I check that box, apply, click OK. There, that makes sense, and now as I roll forward, I'm zooming in, and life is better. All right, let's get to our assessment maps. First step, I'm starting here with this fantastic watershed. Here's our teaser for the webcast on December 1st. We'll we'll develop this watershed boundary at the next webinar. But today I'm starting with it. And also on my map, I have my parcel layer. I've got an ortho image, and also the data I have over here includes soils, my elevation data. We will not be using that today. We'll stick to our soils and our parcels and use the ortho. So in my map, this first assessment map we're going to do is going to be very basic. I just want to have a map that has my landowners' names and the number of acres that are in the watershed. So I have both pieces of information, my watershed boundary and my parcel layer. I need to clip my parcel layer to my watershed boundary. So I'm going to go up here to geo-processing, select the clip tool. My input features is going to be my parcel layer. If I have any doubt about which is which one's my input, which one's my clip, I can always have ArcMap show the help. That help is a little terse. Unfortunately, it's not expansive, but at this point, I'm inputting parcels as my input feature, and my clip feature is going to be my watershed. I'm going to specify where I want to send that file to. I'm going to send it out as a shape file. It's just going to go in my WebGIS Basics 2 folder. I'm going to call it parcel clip. I'm not going to use any spaces. ArcMap does not like spaces. All right, that's all I need to specify. I'll click OK and she'll run. All right, so here's our parcel clip. It's not the prettiest of things. I want to make the fill color to be hollow, and I'll make the outline a yellow. I'm going to turn off the parcels that are overall in my watershed or in my map and just focus on what is on my watershed. So I unchecked that box. And here are my parcels. One tool that we didn't get to in the last webinar that is really useful is the measure tool. And you can measure a line, you can measure an area by drawing your area, or a better tool for this application is actually to measure a feature. Because our parcels are already clipped, and if I want to know how many acres are in this parcel within the watershed, I can just click within that box, and it'll tell me in these units that are not exactly great for me right now. If I want to change units from square feet, for example, to acres, I hit the drop down, go to area, and select acres. And so 58.6 acres in this parcel within the watershed. So one thing to be careful of is the measure tool is going to measure whichever feature is on top. Had, for example, my watershed boundary been above my parcel clip, when I click here, I'm going to think, man, that's a really big tract. It's 186 acres, but no, that's my watershed area. So just be careful over in your table of contents that whatever you're measuring is actually the feature on top. Okay, so we have our parcel clip made, but I still don't have a fantastic map. What I would like to have is a map with labels that'll tell me who the landowner is, how many acres are in the watershed, and how many legal acres are attached to that parcel. So what I need to do is to take a look at this attribute table and see what kind of data is present. I really like to dock my my windows within ArcMap. I like my attribute tables across the bottom. I'm sorry, you're subjected to seeing all my personal preferences, but if you want to dock one of these windows, just guide it around till your cursor is over the arrows, these blue arrows, and then let go. So now my attribute table is docked to the bottom of my screen. All right, so I have my parcel ID number, I have my landowner name and address and legal acres. I'm going to need to add a column so that I can have my watershed acres calculated. So I'm going to add a field. What I do is I click this table options button. I'm going to add a field. I'm going to call it WS_acres for watershed acres. I want at least one decimal point, so I won't have it be an integer. I'm going to choose a float. A float or double will both give you the option of having decimal points. A double just stores more digits than a float. So we're going to choose float. Precision is the overall number of digits that are attached to that field. I'll choose 8. That's a lot of information, or a lot more information than what I need. Scale is how many of those digits are to the right of your decimal place. So if I want to store to the hundredths place, for example, I'll put a 3. Okay, so what that does is that adds this field, this column. The default is to just populate with zeros. I want Esri to go ahead and calculate that geometry for me. So I'm going to right click on watershed acres and go to calculate geometry. I want her to calculate area using the coordinate system of my data source and my data frame. And I'm not interested in square feet, I'm actually interested in acres. So I'll select acres as my units, I'll click OK, and all of that information was calculated for me. All right, so I know I have all of the data that I want to put into my labels. Now I just have to build my labels. So I'm going to go over the table of contents. I'm going to right-click on my parcel clip layer and select Properties. And I'll navigate to the Labels tab. I'm already there, thankfully. And what I'm going to do is to build an expression. We could, if you just wanted to have a simple label, if I just wanted to label acres, I could select that, tell it to label features and apply, and my acres would be on there. But we're basics too. This is way more fancy, so we're going to build an expression. All right. I'm going to send you all a really great resource before I start building. Look at your chat window. I am sending you a link to Esri's website where they have help on building label expressions. What you can find there is that you can double click up here to add a field to our expression. I'm actually not going to add that. Or you can string multiple labels together using the and sign. You can stack labels to make a label with multiple lines of data using VB, CR for carriage return, LF for line feed. That'll build multiple rows within your label. I mean, if you want to add text, you have to put it within quotation marks. So here we go. We're gonna build a label that is going to have my landowner name on one line. On the next line, I want it to have my my acres in the watershed. So I'm going to do an and sign to build that next piece. I want it to put in watershed acres. I double click to add. I want it to identify that those are acres, so I'm going to add the and sign, quotation mark, space, AC. I'm going to add another space and say of, quotation marks, legal acres. I need another and sign because I'm adding another piece of data. And total acres, I need to add another and sign, quotation marks, space, acres, end quotes. So, sorry, that's a little complicated. Here we go. It's saying landowner name, next line, and it'll display my watershed acres of legal acres to verify that that's what she's actually going to print. I'm going to check the sample label and magic. If you coded that incorrectly, if you forgot one of these and signs, when you verify, she'd scream at you. If you don't want to rebuild this label every time, you have the option to save it. I can go in and I'll save it to the folder we're working in now by hitting the home. That's not the folder I wanted. Sorry. I'm going to have to go watersheds, basics 2. I'm going to call it my owner acre label and save it to that folder. Okay. We have built it. We're going to apply it, click OK, and I got what I wanted, but it's not terribly pretty all over my map. There are some rather small parcels, so I'm actually not terribly satisfied with how this looks. It's great in theory, but we're going to change things up. We are going to try a different kind of label. Instead of doing this fancy expression, we're going to go in and do a symbol instead. I'm going to choose, I like the highway symbols. Thank you. Here's a shout out to Auglaize County. I know they like their highway symbols as well. I'm going to use a symbol, and instead of using this expression, I'm going to just have it use my FID, apply, and there we have numeric labels. One limitation to using the FID is that you'll get a 0 label. If you don't like that, we can always add another field, call it the ID field, keep it as an integer. Our precision again is how many digits. I don't anticipate more than 999 labels, so I'll specify 3 digits as a precision. And if I want to get rid of, if I want labels that don't include a 0, I can use the field calculator and tell it FID plus 1. And it'll calculate the FID plus 1. I can go back and edit that parcel label. Instead of using FID, I'll have it use the ID field. Now, I don't have any 0 labels. Okay. So, we now have a decent map if you take it over to layout view like Justin showed us in the last webinar, and if I zoom in and get it pretty and perfect, great. But that's only half the information, right? I've got the spatial information presented on a map. What if I want that tabular information as well to give like an Excel sheet showing how many acres each of these landowners has? Let's do that. Let's get that tabular data into Excel where we're all a little more comfortable. Let's go back to this attribute table. I'm going to click the table options button and I'm going to export. I'm going to export my table. I want all records. Sometimes if you accidentally have a row selected, make sure that she's not just doing selected records. I'm going to hit the browse button. I'm going to save it to this folder we've been working in. I'm going to call it my owner acres table, and I want it to export as a D-based table. A D-based table is one that Excel can read. So I'll click Save, OK. And I recommend that you click No, and I'm going to click Yes to show you why. If I click Yes, it shows my table of contents in a different presentation that's less familiar and sometimes more confusing. It shows you your layers based on where they're saved. We're used to seeing it by drawing order, so I'm just going to click this button here, and it'll take us back to a familiar view. So again, it's not the end of the world if you click yes, but if I had clicked no, it wouldn't have changed things, and I'd be less confused. All right, I'm going to launch Excel to go open up this D-based table that we have just exported. So I'm going to look on my computer. I'm going to browse to where I saved it. All right. I see owner acres is a dbf.xml, but that's an XML. I actually want the D-based table, so I have to tell Excel that I want to look at all files. Now I have a boatload of files, but here's the one I want, dbf file. Owner acres dbf, open please. And here is our table. I want to, how do I do this? How do I shrink? There we go, shrink to fit. Okay. We all know how to use Excel, but I'm gonna cut, put this over here, insert so people know what their assessment number matches on their map. I'd probably tidy up these two columns, actually all of them, but there's your basic assessment map and table. I would save this. It's going to tell me that I'm going to have to save it, sorry, as an Excel document because DBF, this information can't be supported in the DBF with the changes I've made. I'm going to just save it as an Excel workbook, save, and close. We're done in there. Mission accomplished. We have done our basic, I'm sorry it's not pretty, but we have important things to do. Our basic assessment map for a ditch project or a tile main. Next up, and I guess here's a good spot to pause. If anyone has questions about what we did, we can revisit them quickly. If not, can I add the table to map layout view as a legend? I don't know, can you? Does anyone know that answer? I've never tried. Can I add the table to the map layout view as a legend? Not everyone at once. I'll look into that and send an email out after the webinar. Any other questions? All right. next up, we're going to build a more complicated assessment table, and this is a work in progress. I really want to have this process automated using similar tools to what we'll see on December 1st with the watershed tools. I would like to build some assessment tools for especially those counties that are doing ditch assessments or tile assessments. The assessment we're going to work on now is one where we're using, where we're going to build polygons that are specific to soil type, land use, and a proximity index. I know some counties are using a remoteness factor, and it's okay if you're not doing tile assessments. I'm sorry that I'm focusing in on this. The purpose of doing all this is to build the skills, to get comfortable in an editing session and get comfortable manipulating attribute tables. So maybe this doesn't apply specifically to your county, but hopefully the skills are applicable. Okay. First thing I'm going to do in this new round of building assessments is I'm actually going to turn off some labels so our map gets less cluttered. I'll turn off our parcel clip as well, and we're just going to look at our watershed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export a copy of my watershed polygon so that I can slice it up into land use zones. So I'm going to export all features. I'm going to match the layer's source data because it's in State Plane North, and everything in my map for the most part is, so we can be consistent. I'm going to call this land use because that is what we're going to carve her up into. Save. Click OK. Yes, I would like you to add her to the map. I'm going to turn off my watershed layer. I'm going to turn off roads so I can just focus in on this polygon we've added. I'd like to make it hollow. And I don't know, we'll give her a green outline. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to start an editing session. I need to add my editing toolbar, so I'm going to right-click up here in this gray space and find Editor. I'm going to click on Editor and start editing. I want to edit my land use layer. Okay. I think green was a bad color. It's actually kind of hard to see her. Let's make her white and make her whiter. Okay. I'm going to select the polygon and I'm going to start splitting the polygon. I'm going to start splitting the polygon using this tool right here, the Cut Polygons tool. And I'm going to cut the polygon based on land use. So I'm looking at probably doing 4 classes. I want to do woods ground separately. I want to do agricultural ground is one classification, residential is one, and I'm going to lump farmsteads into residential. And I also want to do one class is pavement, which will in this case just be my roads. So I'm going to start, actually I'm going to start by turning off snapping. I really don't like snapping when I'm splitting polygons, so I just launched my snapping toolbar. I'm going to tell her to not snap. Okay, I'm going to start by splitting off this road. I click once to start and twice to end, and I have to extend beyond the polygon that I'm splitting. And I'll carve out the road up here, and now I need to reselect this polygon. If you can see up here, it's only highlighted the one to the north, but I actually want to split out this headquarters down here, so I'll select down there. and split out this farmstead. I'll split out this farmstead and we'll move north and keep trimming out different land use areas. Everything here is ag ground. Looks like I have woods to split. I'm going to select this polygon, hit the split tool, start trimming, or start. So I also click once at each vertex. And click twice to close. All right, it looks like I have another road to trim out. Let's start here. It's not the best ortho to see where my road is everywhere. Looks like I'm trimming trees. All right. There's my approximation. Next up, here on the east side of the road, we've got some houses that I want to classify. At least these lots is residential. I want to trim out this ag ground. And I want to trim off this field. There we go. Did I miss any land use segments? Anyone see anything? Okay, all right. I have finished getting my land uses spatially edited, but I want to go in and make some edits to my attribute table. I want to code in each one of these classifications. I'll use a 1 for pavement, and 2 for residential, a 3 for ag, and a 4 for woods. But I first need to add a field. Oop, look at that, I can't add a field. I'm in an editing session and Esri doesn't allow me to add fields while I'm editing, so I need to save my edits, stop editing, and now add a field. I'm going to call it, I'll call it class. I'll have it be a short integer, and 2 digits is more than enough for my needs. Okay. I could select each row and go through on the map and code them individually, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to come onto the map and hit the Shift key and go through and select, oops, actually I need to hit the select tool first, select features. I'm going to click the polygon I want to select. I'm going to select all of my fields by hitting the Shift key and selecting on the map. So I've selected each one of my fields. I'm going to come down to the attribute table and I want it to just show selected records. So I'm going to click this button. I'm going to use the field calculator to code all of these is ag fields. Ag fields, I said I'd make 3. So I'll click OK. And now all of those are coded as a 3. Next up, we'll do pavement. So I'm going to select my 2 road segments, click that one, hit the Shift key as I come in to select this one, and right-click on class, click field calculator, and pavement, I said I would make 1. Click OK. Next up, let's do residential. Whoop, I did not mean to get this one. I'm going to hit the Shift key and click again and to unselect. So if I accidentally get a field I didn't want, just click it a second time while holding Shift. Okay, I've grabbed my residential pieces. And again, right-click, field calculator, residential, we're making 2. Okay. Lastly, I have my woods ground. And that, I'm going to use field calculator to make a 4. Okay. Let's go back to looking at all of the records, not just the selected ones, and make sure that everything has a class. It does. And I'll sort just to make sure there's no zeros hanging out. All right, we're good. Everything has been classified. So if you want to create some symbology in your land use layer based on this column, we could do that too. So I can right click on land use, go to properties. Double clicking on land use will also get us here as well. Instead of looking at, well, let's label, no, let's not label. Let's just do symbology. I don't want a single symbol. I want categories. Unique values is exactly what I'm looking for. The value that I want it to consider is the class. I'm going to uncheck all other values. I'm going to add values. So based on if I wanted my pavement to be red because it has the most runoff potential, and in my woods to be green because it has the least, and make this something intermediate like a yellow. We could apply that, and here's our watershed coded. Maybe you want to make it kind of transparent because I still want to see what's happening below. We can go to the display tab and make it slightly transparent. Okay. If you also want to know how many acres are, again, in each polygon, we can use the calculate geometry again. So the only thing I need to change here is acres is my units. Click OK, and oop, look at that. She only calculated the 2 fields I had selected, so I need to unselect all of the fields and then calculate geometry. Look, now she did it for all of my polygons. All right, we have mastered land use. Next up, let's take a look at soils. Soils is a pretty easy one to do. We're just going to clip our soils layer to our parcels layer. So our input is going to be soils. Our clip is going to be our watershed. I'm going to browse to my folder and specify soil clip will be my output feature class. All right. And again, we can change how the layer looks. Let's double click to open. We can go into symbology and say I wanted to change how my layer looks based on what soil classification it has. We can choose a color ramp, or as I did before, you can come in and manually change them by double clicking. I kind of wanted a color ramp. Here we go. We'll do a grayscale display, 60% transparent, just to see what it looks like. Let's turn off land use. Grayscale was a poor choice, eh? All right. So we have clipped our soils layer to our watershed. We can take a look at each of the soil classes we have present. And we have gathered so far our soils information. We've gathered our land use information. The last piece I promised you, and it looks like we still have time for, is to calculate your proximity or remoteness to our proposed tile line. This part is probably going to be the most challenging for today. So if we want to take a small pause. If anyone has any questions, it's a good time to ask. Nothing? Oh, wow. All right, Lauren Rush shared, you can highlight and copy cells in Excel and paste them into your layout view. Is that answering, that's answering how we can add in that attribute table into our legend? I believe it is. Okay. What do you have for me, Justin?
Yeah, that's what she was referring to, and I played around with it. And you can easily just go to the insert objects and insert after you save it, that Excel spreadsheet, clip it to your selection, and then maybe paste that at the bottom so you have like a one-page handout showing the map and a legend of all of the data that correspond to your ID numbers.
Awesome. I have never tried that. Thank you, guys.
I didn't either.
All right. Anything else? All right. Let's get started with looking at calculating a remoteness factor. Our first step is going to be to add a new shapefile to our map. I'm going to go over to catalog. I'm going to expand catalog, specify the folder that I want the shapefile to go into, right click on that folder name, go to new, and shapefile. I'm going to call this shapefile proposed tile. I want it to be a polyline. I need to give it a spatial reference. I'm going to choose state plane north and click OK. I need to start editing. So it's added that layer to my map, but I need to draw that tile in. So I'm going to start editing, select proposed tile, click OK, and I'm looking for my create features window. It didn't pop up here, so I'll go chase it down. I'm going to click editor, go to editing window, and I'm going to say create features. So that brings up my create features toolbar. I'm going to click on my proposed tile, and now I can come over into the map and draw where my tile line will go. And we'll take our main down to here. Sorry, it's a bit rudimentary, but we're just going to roll with what we have. I'm going to save my edits, and at this point, what I'm going to start doing is creating buffers around this proposed tile line to come up with remoteness zones. I need to turn my watershed back on to know when I can stop buffering. I'm going to go to geo-processing and click buffer, and my input feature, no, cancel. I don't want to go to geo-processing. I want to go to editor and do buffer. It'll end up being faster in the long run. The difference is that on geo-processing, it'll create a new shapefile each time I run it. When I do it in editor, I'm actually going to add these lines to the existing shapefile that I'm working in. You can do either. I prefer this way because I assure you it's a little faster. Okay, I'm going to do 200-foot zones. I need this tool. Okay, so I'm going to keep buffering. Now I'm going to do a 400-foot buffer. I need to select back my tile line each time. Buffer at 600 feet. select my tile line, buffer at 800 feet. Nope, tile line, please. Oh, failing. Here we go. 1,000 feet. My next zone will be 1,200. And sorry, I should explain for those of you that aren't using remoteness factors in your tile assessments, the reason why we're doing these is because in your watershed, if you're putting in a tile main, the folks that are closest to that tile main or ditch get the most benefit when it is improved. The folks that are further up on the hill at the top of your watershed see, in terms of drainage, the least benefit to those improvements. So districts, when they're building assessments based on a remoteness or proximity factor, they are weighting their assessments towards proximity. So you might get like a 10% assessment for a remoteness factor, or you might get a remoteness factor of 0.1 if you're all the way out here, but you might get a remoteness factor of 0.9 if you're in this zone. So that's the purpose of what I'm doing at this point. But it's also really good to be able to use different geo-processing tools. I think I was on 600 feet or 1,600 feet. And I apologize for not giving this, giving the best of explanations. I acknowledge that I'm trying to rush through a little too much in this webinar, but I want to make it worth your time. All right, almost done with our buffer zones. 2,200, and let's do 2,400. Wait, I was doing 400 foot. No, I didn't want to do that. So I'm gonna hit delete and make that go away. All right, I need to select my tile line and illustrate to you that I'm horrible at multitasking. Was I doing 400 foot buffers before I started talking?
200 feet.
200 feet. All right, thank you. 2,400. Apparently I need to do one more to get all of my watershed. 2,600. All right, everything is in a zone. Unfortunately, I don't have polygons at this point. They're all lines because I buffered this to a shapefile. So how do I convert my lines to polygons? Well, first we're going to save our edits, stop editing, and next we're going to go to ArcToolbox. And I'm going to dock it. I'm going to expand the data management tools. Oh, I'm cheating. I was just here. I'm going to expand the features toolbox, and then there is a feature to polygon tool that I want to use. My input feature is proposed tile. My output feature I'm going to call remoteness, and I'm going to tell her to run.
While that's running, Janelle, is it possible to label those buffers?
Yeah, it is. What we would need to do first is I guess we have an ID field already in there. I'm going to add a field and call it distance. Precision of 4 is necessary. And I actually have to go through and label each one of these buffered areas. So thankfully, they all are sequential to how I built them. So I can use Field Calculator to populate this field. So I want my distance to be equal to, actually cancel, I want to make sure. This is my first zone. It's at a distance of 0. So this is my second zone. It's 200 to 400 feet. So I'm going to take FID times 200 to give me my distance. So Field Calculator, FID times 200. Oh, I did that again, huh? I need to unselect and try that again. Field Calculator, and she calculates for all. So we want labels, properties, labels, label features. I want her to label the feature as a distance. And if we want to get a little bit fancy, we can tell her to label it with feet behind it. Okay, apply. While we're in here, let's change our symbology to something. All right, that'll work. Let's turn off that line. Gray again was a bad color. I really should stop choosing gray. Or white was better. We learned this already. Okay. There's our buffered zones. So I promised you that we were going to get closer at least to an assessment. I don't think we're going to make it all the way there, but we have 3 pieces of information: our remoteness, our soils, and our land use. Let's get them all to one layer. So if we are at least going to be doing some calculations, we can have a single attribute table to pull out into Excel to start manipulating. So if we just go to geo-processing, union, we can add all of these features together: the remoteness, the soils, the parcels. I want to add parcels because I need to end my zones at a parcel boundary so I know who's getting charged for what. Soils, remote, land use. Land use is the one we have it. All right. We're gonna export that as I'll call it the union file. Save. I want to keep all of my attributes. I don't want any gaps. And I'm going to have her go. All right, let's turn off remoteness. I'm not interested in anything that's happening out here, so I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do a clip of union. I'm going to clip it to watershed, export as a union clip. Sorry for the originality. Turn this off. All right. Oop, nope, turn the wrong one off. There we have all of our data merged on one layer. I'm going to stop there. I'd love to make it pretty for you, but I want to give you a chance for questions before this is over. Any questions, information request? I could take the last 3 minutes to export this, or even our watershed boundary, to CAD if that's desired. What do you guys want?
I hope you guys saw I made a little comment there on the chat button, but I just wanted to clarify the going back to the beginning, the watershed boundary shapefile that she was using was something that we'll get to in the next webinar, right, Janelle? How you created that shapefile of the original watershed boundary.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that is one of the main objectives of the December 1st webinar, is to do a watershed delineation. The other objective would be to calculate a runoff curve number for your watershed. All right. I would like to see, make it pretty. We can make it pretty. Chet. All right, Chet, that's a great question. Chet would like to see how we can use the union clip to calculate assessments. I cannot do that in 2 minutes, Chet, but Pat, I can make it pretty in 2 minutes. Chet, I can follow up with you after the webinar, or we can make another webinar on this topic if there's interest. So let's make her pretty. I'm going to right click, or I'm going to double click, go into symbology. I'm going to do categories, and I'm going to choose unique values, many fields. I want to look at my distance, my my land use, I called that class, and my hydrologic soil group dominant condition is all weighting into my assessment. Let's take a look. So obviously it's weighted more heavily to distance, because I chose that as my first field, but we can start to see how land use has an effect in here. So this is a mild visual representation of how each of those factors would influence your assessment, where your assessment is coolest or darkest green, depending on how you're weighting your factors here near your tile line. There's another question. When will the hydrology tools be available for us to prepare for the December webinar, and where can we access them? That is the perfect question. All right, if you are on a CCE machine, the watershed tools are already on your F drive, thanks to Jeremy Keller. He will likely be sending an email out this afternoon to explain where they are and how to use them, or maybe not how they use them, but at least where they are. December 1st, we'll look at how to use them. If you are not on a CCE machine, Justin and I are working to get those tools onto the ODA FTP site. And I'm sure one of us will be shooting out an email in advance of that December webinar.
Yes, we'll do that, and it's about 9:30 here, so I don't want to keep everybody too long. But thank you, Janelle, for explaining some more cool tips and tricks. I know I learned 2 or 3 things that are gonna save me a lot of time, and hopefully all of you did too. If you're not working with petition, ditch assessment type projects, hopefully you were able to see and maybe find some other uses for some of the tools and methods that Janelle went through. It's a good way to just kind of characterize a lot of different tools and skills, put them together as a good example of how they might be used. So we will do that, as was said there, the hydrology tools webinar on the 1st, and probably reconvene after the Christmas holiday season in January, maybe with some other webinars. And the reason I mention that is if you have any suggested topics we'd certainly welcome those. Email myself or Janelle so that we can kind of figure out where to navigate the maybe future webinars and where to direct them towards. Okay, with that said, thanks again, Janelle. I appreciate your insight. Enjoy your Friday, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.